Welcome in, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here for the Week 8 edition of the Sports Ethos Weekly Lineup Show. My name is Joe Orrico, and I'm your host. I'm joined today, as always, by my very handsome co-host, not so dirty today, but we'll still call him Dirty Steve Vidovich. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. Excited for another week of some fantasy hoops. Excited to chat with you guys, the viewers, and just looking forward to some more basketball as usual.
It's insanity to believe that we're a couple weeks away from Christmas. It's already Week 8. We are, I guess, a third of the way through the season, through the fantasy season, roughly. It's hard to believe. But we are going to be here for the next roughly half an hour or so answering all your questions. We're going to go through some lineup schedule stuff. To begin with here, Steve, you got some notes that you've made before the show. Why don't you tell us what you're looking at this week in terms of scheduling advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah, so week 8, we got no teams playing 5 games. We have 2 teams that are having 2-game weeks. That's the Spurs and the Blazers. So that really you want to make sure in weekly lineup settings that you're not going to be starting any Spur or Blazer player that doesn't have a chance of finishing, inside the top 30 on the week compared to like teams that have 3-game and a lot of teams have 4 games this week. So be very wary of your Blazers and Spurs. The one fortunate thing for them in daily lineup settings is that they both get a game on one of the slower games of the week, Tuesday or Thursday. I forgot which. Then you have 12 teams playing 4-game weeks. Of those teams, the ones that don't have back-to-backs are the Hornets, the Bucks, the Magic, and the Raptors. But they're also playing on the high volume days outside of maybe perhaps you could say Sunday, which has 7 games playing. But then once again, that's the Hornets, the Bucks, the Magic, and the Raptors are looking at pretty favorable schedules with no back-to-backs. Then the teams or the 2 teams that have really intriguing schedules are going to be the Heat. They do have a back-to-back today and tomorrow. But they are playing both on a Tuesday and Thursday this week, both the Nuggets and the Heat. So those are your 2 teams to hyper target this week in weekly lineup settings, because not only do you get them on low volume days, but especially with the Heat, you get a 4-game week out of it, although there might be some concern with rest, load management on the back end of a back-to-back. That's definitely possible. Whereas the Nuggets, I feel a lot more confident about playing all of the healthy guys on a 3-game week. You just are waiting on news on Michael Porter Jr. It's really unfortunate, but we knew going into the season that he was probably going to miss some time. So you can, start all your Nuggets with confidence, all your main guys, and start your Heat guys with as much confidence as you can right now, considering their injury report.
Yeah, I will say it's nice to have a lineup or a weekly schedule, I should say, that's not so out of proportion. Like last week, we saw 10, 3, 13, 1, 11 in terms of game distribution. Now we got a little bit more balance. Still, I wish somebody would, change the way that they do things over there, with the way they make schedules, just have 7 or 8 games every single day. I think it'd be a little bit easier, but it's a little more balanced this week. It's not so crazy on either end of the spectrum. I meant to say it right off the top, but I linked here in the live chat the article that Derek Ball wrote. He's one of our writers at Sports Ethos. He does it every single week, looking ahead to different matchups, different advantages that you guys can look at. Back-to-backs, maximizing schedules, different streamers. It's a really great piece. You guys should check it out. It's linked here just at the top of the live chat. And I will say, before we really truly kick it off here with your questions, like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get this out to be seen by as many people as we possibly can. So we are going to get going here. The first question that we just have the one at the moment. We got some kind words from a few people in the chat. We appreciate that always. But Adrian is asking, should we try and sell Cade because there's no news on him? They said no surgery just yet, so rest, but how long? For me, if you can sell him, it's probably not going to be for very much. It's really hard to say what you should do with him. In an IL format, I'm just holding on, hoping for the best, because I don't think you're going to be able to get much. But if you can sell him and get back like a top 100 player, I'd probably be inclined to do it. What do you think, though, Steve?
Yeah, if you can get a guy who maybe other people view him as like a top 100, but you see that they have like an outside shot at the top 75, I would do that. myself because I'm just really worried about Cade's outlook the rest of the season, especially if I was down in the standings and I needed to get somebody who's available and playing in games. If I had a pretty decent lead on the rest of the league, or I'm in a comfortable position for the playoffs, I don't know if I would be looking to sell him just because, like you said, Joe, what are you going to get back for him at this point in time? You're better off just holding and hoping. But if I'm struggling in a league and I need to pick up some wins, I would try to sell. I agree with you. I don't know what you can get. It's pretty much like a all-time low for him. If you could get a top 75 guy, I would do it in a heartbeat. Top 100, I think that would depend on where you are positioned in the standings right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question we got here is about Bones Highland. It's from our friend Blake Creamer. He hosts the hockey podcast here at Sports Ethos, Fantasy NHL Today. You guys should go check that out. How do you like Bones for the week? What kind of deployment? Now, I got to be honest. He only played 5 minutes last night, and I'm not exactly sure why. I didn't see the game. Do you know why he only played 5 minutes?
I don't think it had anything to do with injuries, as far as I know. Let me.
Yeah, 'cause he's not on the injury report. I truly didn't see the game. I just saw afterwards that, excuse me, guys, that he just played the 5 minutes there, and I do like the thought of adding him, and a lot of people have added him up, but that is concerning. Is that just maybe trying to ease him back in? You think? It seems weird. I got to be
It's
honest.
very strange. I mean, the 3 games he's been back, the first game back from the non-COVID illness, he got a DNP, coach's decision, so he was available but didn't play. And then a few days later against the Hawks, he logs 22 minutes and has a decent game. And then he logs 5 minutes last night. So I'm a little bit perplexed by his outlook. I I don't I wouldn't be rushing to pick him up, even though there is tremendous upside there, especially if MPJ's injury continues for another few weeks. He might be in the doghouse of Michael Malone. Maybe he's not giving them the defense that Malone wants to see. Perhaps he was out there in those 5 minutes and he made a couple of mistakes. Like you, I didn't see that game last night, but I'm just knowing Bones. I know he's offensively inclined. The Nuggets are struggling mightily on the defensive end, and that's where they need help. So perhaps that's the reason why he got pulled from last night's game, having not watched it. But I wouldn't be rushing to pick him up right now. Bruce Brown is the best streaming option on the Nuggets right now. Although I could also see Bones getting 22 minutes again in the next one and having a fine line. So it's a very risky situation that I would rather stay away from until we get some more evidence that he's clearly in the rotation on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's tricky, especially because, like you were mentioning earlier, they have a nice little schedule advantage this week, playing on a couple of low volume days. He'd be an interesting ad, like if he had even played 20 minutes last night, but it does make it a little bit tricky. Cuz Alvarado happened. I don't know why would that even like cause it to that effect? Like 5 minutes, like it's really like it's nothing. I don't think it's because of a breakout performance from Jose Alvarado on the other side, which I didn't see the game, but Alvarado hit 8 threes last night. He went completely ballistic. But I don't think that would cause that. It seems kind of like there's not really much of a correlation there. But yeah, I think I'd have to agree. You have to kind of just stay away unless you're pretty desperate. Maybe if you're in like a 14-team league and he's sitting there or something. But for the most part, yeah, I'm trying to avoid him. Somebody that I added today, actually, just as a side note, Caleb Martin. I know he's not the sexiest guy. We got a back-to-back coming up. He's the guy that I added in a couple of leagues this morning. I think that he was the one that looked most interesting on a couple of my 12-team waiver wires anyway. Any news on Desmond Bain? I haven't heard any today. Is there any new update on Desmond Bain that we might have missed?
Nothing to. I believe he's still out for the Grizzlies game tonight. Um, we have been getting like some little positive news. I guess as of the weekend, head coach Taylor Jenkins said that the Grizzlies should have an update this week. So at some point this week, we should have a more substantial update on Bain. Until then, I'd consider him, day to day. I don't see that he's going to miss a whole lot more time if I was to guess in a vacuum. I think he'll be back within if I had to guess, I would, if I'm putting money in Vegas, I'd say he'd be back within the next 10 days. That would be my guess, hopefully sooner, but that I think is a reasonable target. Not knowing any of the situation other than the fact that the head coach said there would be an update this week.
Yeah, and Blake did mention the chat. You can see it here on Yahoo as well. The latest update. It's courtesy of RotoWire. Actually, he is out of his walking boot, so that is promising. But yeah, he's not imminently going to be back. I don't think. I think we're at least talking like a week. Which I mean, I guess could be imminent depending on how you want to look at it, but not somebody you need to put into your lineup for this week. Jarrett Allen, are you guys starting or sitting him? I believe he is questionable for Tuesday, and considering it's a 3-game week, I'd probably try and avoid it where I can. What are you thinking, though, Steve?
I would love to know what his other option is,
Yeah.
because in a vacuum, I would like to get Jarrett Allen into my lineups if I could. I mean, you're right. They have a 3-game week, and they do have a back-to-back on Friday, Saturday. So it's possible we see Jarrett Allen miss one of those games. But right now, I'd love to know who your other option is to really give you a good decision there. It's risky with the questionable tag, but then again, Allen is going to be your best option likely if he does suit up for all 3 games.
Yeah, like you said, I'm kind of worried about that back-to-back. Like maybe he's back for Tuesday. He's questionable. It's a risky play, I think. Personally, yeah. Let's see who the other option is because that might help us a lot in that question. Next one we got here, better add Tim Hardaway or Malik Monk, 12-team, 9-cat head-to-head. I think probably Tim Hardaway has been cooking recently. He's the one I would lean towards.
Yeah. I think I would agree with you. He's starting. I do believe that, this recent hot streak is not going to last in the way that he's played over the last week, but out of the two, THJ is definitely the pickup for me.
Yeah, absolutely. This one hits close to home. 9-cat roto, Keldon Johnson or Josh Hart. Keldon Johnson has been killing me in a couple of leagues. The field goal percentage has been beyond atrocious. I think he's shooting about 35% over the last month. I'd have to go Josh Hart.
Yeah, Josh Hart is the floor play. Keldon Johnson is more of the ceiling play in the hopes that he can turn around the percentages. If I'm less risk adverse, I would go Hart. If I am inclined to deal with a little bit more risk, I'd go Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, for me personally, he's been killing me. He killed me last week. Like I should have won my week, and field goal flipped it over. And one of those leagues is like a win one. You just get one win for the week. It's not like a win in every individual category. So I'm a little sour at Keldon at the moment. We don't have any questions right now, but I do have a question for you. I thought was kind of interesting. I play a lot of Yahoo leagues, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, whatever. The top 3 most added players today in Yahoo leagues all play for the same team, the Atlanta Hawks. AJ Griffin, we have Jared Culver, and we have Jalen Johnson. All 3 of these guys in a league of 30 teams, all the top ads come from the same team. Are you interested in adding up any or all of these guys? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I do like Jalen Johnson for rebounds and some defensive stats. I also like AJ Griffin as like a 3-and-D guy. I think both of those players could be added. Although as Bogdanovich gets his legs underneath him, we might not see Griffin stay above the cut line. That's the one piece I'm nervous about with him. Jalen Johnson seems to be the safest add out of the 3. Jarrett Culver is a guy I would consider probably in like a 14-team league instead of a 12-team league. Although if you're looking to, add in a streamer for some rebounds and maybe some defensive production, I don't mind the Jarrett Culver. But I think if I was going to rank them, I would go Johnson, Griffin, Culver. And it's actually a little bit closer between Griffin and Culver with Bogdanovich healthy.
I think most people generally would probably take Griffin first, just from looking at what he's done recently in the stats. For me, I don't know. Like I think they're pretty close, don't you think? Like going forward, I mean, while there's injuries, sure, I think you can safely probably stream them all. But like rest of the season, if the whole team is healthy, the don't you think Griffin might be the one there, or am I wrong there?
No, I think rest of the season. I like Griffin. I think he's the best basketball player of the three, and I think he's going to have the most consistent role when John Collins and DeAndre Hunter get back. While John Collins and DeAndre Hunter are out, I like Jalen Johnson, a little bit more. Although, Jared Culver has also impressed, and both of those guys are more fill-ins while the Hawks are dealing with injuries to their two big forwards who are very important on the defensive end. Specifically, DeAndre Hunter is their big wing to throw at opposing, offensive wings that are super talented. I see Jalen Johnson and Jared Culver taking over that spot while Collins and Hunter are out. The rest of the season, I agree with you. I like Griffin. If I was in a dynasty league, I would value Griffin way higher than the other two.
Okay. Well, we got some clarity here actually on the earlier Jared Allen question. The other options are Chris Boucher or Isaiah Jackson. I guess you'd want to start Allen, but I think, man, maybe Boucher is the safest play there. But what are your thoughts here, Steve?
So Pacers are dealing with two back-to-backs. They have a back end of one today against the Warriors, and then another one Friday, Saturday. So the only way that maybe Jackson would be a play is if you see a Miles Turner sit out one of those games, which I don't think that's going to be the case. So I would rather play Jared Allen over him. And in terms of Boucher, with the Raptors healthy, they have 4 games this week. None of them come in a back-to-back situation. So it's risky because, if Allen doesn't play tomorrow, I'd be more inclined to go Boucher as the play. But I think I would roll the dice and I'd put Allen in there and just hope that he suits up tomorrow. Maybe look to see if Kevin Love is on your wire too, because if Allen does miss time, Kevin Love is a good streaming option, and I might actually prefer him to the other guys you mentioned. He could actually, still deliver some sort of value because Dean Wade is out for the Cavs for a while, so I would like to insert Kevin Love over those other two guys in a vacuum. But if I'm going to choose between the three, I'm going to choose Jared Allen.
Yeah, I think you'd have to at that point. I mean, maybe for me, Boucher might be a little bit just peace of mind wise, depending on your standings. And if you really truly need to just, guarantee some production, maybe I'd go Boucher. But if you can, Jared Allen would be the preferable start there. Do you think a Lakers trade is imminent with the Matt Ryan waiving? It's possible. I don't see them doing anything like in the next couple of days, or I don't know. I haven't heard any real rumors. Not that that necessarily means anything, but usually you start to see some stuff cooking up on Twitter, and there's rumors and talk and stuff like that. And we haven't really seen much of that in the way of Lakers. Whether it's a Miles Turner trade or whatever. I haven't really heard much of that, so I'm going to lean probably no. But what are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, if I was going to bet in Vegas, if that has any impact on the Lakers making a trade, I'd say no. I would say that maybe it means that they're going to add another two-way player. Or was Matt Ryan on a non-guaranteed? I believe he was on a two-way contract, but I could be wrong about that. If he was on a two-way contract, I think that's what that would mean. In terms of the Lakers making a trade, if I was a Lakers fan, I would actually be happy that there's no trade rumors. Because maybe that means that their management is keeping stuff in-house. And I bet you they're still having conversations with other managers around the league. I think that happens on an ongoing basis. And I'd rather my team not be showing up in a bunch of rumors on Twitter. That would make me more nervous, actually. I have no idea if the Lakers are inclined to make a deal. There's no way to know. I guess not, and I don't think the Matt Ryan waiving has anything to do with a potential deal.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. He wasn't. I mean, maybe just to free up a spot, and he was signed to a non-guaranteed contract for what it's worth.
So they got rid of him before his contract became guaranteed.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll always be a Lakers legend with that game tying shot to send that one game to overtime. I forgot who they were playing, but Matt Ryan will live in Lakers what is it? Lore, the word I'm looking for.
I still hear Matt Ryan. I think football. I can't get around to Matt Ryan being anything but a quarterback, and I still think him as a Falcons quarterback too, for what it's worth. But we got another question here. Same guy asking the question. He's holding Kawhi in IR. Do you suggest pulling him out now or wait for the minutes restriction to lift? Worst players: Taylor Horton, or no, not Taylor Horton Tucker. Tim Hardaway Jr., Mathurin, and Jalen Smith. I probably am not going to be starting Kawhi just yet. I mean, he's questionable for today. There hasn't been anything that I've seen since we started recording that suggests he's playing or not. I would just leave him there most likely. I'd probably go with Tim Hardaway. But what are you thinking here, Steve?
Yeah, I might be inclined to let go of Mathurin just in a 9-cat category league. If we're talking points league, then I guess it's a little bit closer between Hardaway and Mathurin. In terms of if you're in a weekly lineup setting, no way. I'm leaving Kawhi on the IR. If you're in a roto league, I'm leaving Kawhi on the IR. If I'm in a daily head-to-head setting and Kawhi's playing, I'd rather wait to get the news. Maybe if we don't get news before 3:30 today, games start at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern. So if we don't get anything by like 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, then that would be the time that I would move Kawhi out of my IR if I wanted to have the opportunity to play him. And if I'm in a category league, I think I'd drop Mathurin, but I think it's close between him and Hardaway Jr.
Guys, don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Dan is reminding me from the chat, of course, because I do tend to forget these things. You guys keep me busy with these questions. We got another one here. This is an interesting one. Drop Bull to add Şengün. 10-team, 9-cat head-to-head. I would have figured these guys would both be rostered 100%. I I probably wouldn't, but I would try and I mean, is there anybody else you can drop? That would be my first question because he shouldn't be just available. At worst, you should try and trade him to somebody because he has a ton of value. He's close to top 50 for the season still, I believe. So I wouldn't recommend dropping him. What are you thinking here, Steve?
Yeah, I would try to hold on to Bull. I mean, if you're punching blocks and steals, then he does lose a decent amount of his value. But I would still rather trade him than drop him straight up for Şengün. I think you might even have someone else on your roster that you could drop to add Şengün while you try and make a trade for Bull. I think that he has too much value to drop.
Yeah, there's somebody will want him. Somebody would take him.
Yeah.
And you'd probably get a pretty penny back for him. Maybe like even worst case, like a top 75 player, probably absolute worst case. So yeah, try and make a deal if you can. Trade Melton for Keldon. It's probably a safe play long term, but it's hard to say that right now the way he's been shooting. Like he'll turn it around eventually. He won't shoot 35% forever. But I think Melton honestly feels a little bit safer, specifically in the short term. What are your thoughts, though, Steve?
Yeah, I think that I think it's a long-term move that will work out, even if in the short term, we've talked about Keldon Johnson's struggles shooting the ball of late. I think he turns it around. I think he's too good of a basketball player to be shooting 35% for the whole season. The Spurs do, have the risk of shutting players down, for the Wemby sweepstakes at the end of the season. So there's a little bit of risk for Keldon where Melton seems like the safer play to me, whereas Keldon Johnson seems like he has a higher upside. Yeah. That's what I'll say. So if you're chasing upside, then do it. If you want the consistent safe floor and you don't want to risk with a potential shutdown for some of the Spurs players towards the end of the year, then maybe you keep Melton. But I think I'd lean towards Keldon Johnson in this one.
I probably would too. Like I said earlier, I'm a little bit sour, but like you said, Melton higher floor, Keldon much higher ceiling. Next question we got is about Franz Wagner. I always still call him Wagner. That's just the westernized version, I guess. Going to maintain production or close to with some players back for the Magic. Maybe he won't keep up. I mean, he's averaging 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. I think maybe the points go down a little bit, but everything else is probably fairly sustainable.
I think the assists also is something that will probably dip a little bit with
A little bit.
Fultz back. I don't think he's gonna. Um, it's Fultz and Cole Anthony are going to eat out of both Wagner and Ben Caro's playmaking ability. So I see Wagner as like ceiling top 90, floor more like top 130 rest of the season. So somewhere in that range is where I see him finishing.
I should touch on my lights because they actually just flickered for the first time this show. They tend to do that. So I reached out to the company. They sent an electrician out, or not to the company. I reached out to the electrical company, sent an electrician out because I changed the bulb. That didn't work. I got to get the whole ceiling fan and everything replaced because there's something wrong with it. So one's on the way. The flickering will go and the effect will be gone
Oh
very soon.
man, it'll be a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it's kind of just part of our shtick now at this point. Man, I think I said it last week. I was doing a baseball pod and I was guesting on a pod and it flickered like 6 times during the thing. I was ready to die. It was embarrassing. But anyway, next question. We got another question here. What's up with Trent Jr.? Last year was an important piece and now seems falling from nurse preferences. I am not big on him. Like even last year, I really liked Gary Trent, but like a huge portion of his value comes from those steals. Last year, 1.7. This year, 1.6. He's still somebody to hold on to, but I'm not crazy about him. I think he's pretty borderline, honestly, in most cases. Like 10-team league, I'd be probably okay to move on. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't see him as a guy who's going to be inside of the top 60, top 75 on the season. Like you said, he gets a lot of his value from basically two categories, and he needs to shoot really efficiently and grab close to 2 steals a game with really solid contributions with 3 pointers, and he needs to do that really efficiently in order to be a valuable 10-team player. So in a 12-team league, he's worth holding on to. In a 10-team, I'd rather look for somebody with higher upside.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I like the guy, but his game is not that fantasy friendly. Specifically, the free throws are also down this year. He's a chucker. He shoots. I mean, it's down this year, but still 14 shot attempts per game, 41%. It's a lot not to like. So yeah, that's pretty much it with Gary Trent. Would you trade Kawhi for Şengün? I probably would, honestly. As crazy as it sounds, I think I probably would in most cases. It's a lot safer to have Şengün than Kawhi rest of season. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to say, but I think I would do it too. I I just wouldn't. I don't want to deal with the headache that has been Kawhi Leonard to this point. There's a chance that you trade him and he comes back and he plays, 75% of the games the rest of the way, and he performs like his all-star self. But if I was to bet, I'd bet against that, and I'd rather have the much safer asset in Sengun. So I'd make that deal.
The thing with him is it's not even like when he's been out there, he's been elite, kind of thing. When he's been out there, he's been trash. He's averaging 10, 4, and 3 on 42%, 76 from the line, point 0.6 steals. Like he hasn't done anything when he's been out there. So I would definitely be inclined to take Şengün as, like you said, as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to see, talking about Kawhi, the playoffs. Like, let's say this continues for the whole season and then the playoffs start. Would it be crazy if we saw a different version of Kawhi than we are seeing during the regular season and he's just saving it all for the postseason? If that happens, that will be one of the biggest storylines of this season into the offseason, and the NBA will want to probably try to do something to prevent a player basically tanking the entire regular season. If Kawhi is not healthy in the postseason, then we know that he's just not healthy. But I could see a scenario where Kawhi is back in the playoffs, and that would be very strange.
Yeah, I saw it firsthand. Like you guys don't know, I'm in Toronto. I'm a Raptors fan, and when he was in Toronto, he played most of the games. Still, I mean, looking at it now, he played like 60 games. We'd kill to have 60 Kawhi games, but now it's gotten to a point where I don't think he cares at all about the regular season. And going forward for fantasy, like you said, assuming they make the playoffs, if he's there, healthy to ready to go, like let's say we go through this nonsense the whole season and he plays 15 games in and out of the lineup, and then he's just perfectly fine for the playoffs. he's not somebody that I think we can ever trust again for fantasy. It's gotten to a crazy point. Like everybody's still holding on for 97% rostered. I guess a couple of people have probably dropped him in shallow leagues, but it's really frustrating to take him in the second, third round and then have to deal with this kind of crap. So yeah, I'm very intrigued down the road. And my love for him that I grew during that year in Toronto is pretty much evaporated because of playing fantasy these last couple of years. So maybe unfair to him, but let's move on. A lot of time on Kawhi there. Trade Hallie and Drew Holiday for Devin Booker and Garland. Initial hit is it seems pretty fair. Booker and Garland for Hallie and Drew Holiday. What would your take here be, Steve?
Yeah, it's an intriguing deal. Halliburton is dealing with an injury right now. Booker has been excellent on the season. 9 cat leagues per game value. Halliburton is ranked 11th. Booker's right at 14. Where is Garland at? Garland's at 61, and Drew Holiday is at 34. So you're technically getting the second and fourth ranked players in exchange for the first and third. I think I would do it because I like the outlook for the Suns and the Cavs more than I do the Pacers. And I could see the Pacers start to lose some games, and we see Halliburton miss some time. Right now, it's a legitimate injury, but I don't see the Pacers as a legitimate playoff threat, even though, Rick Carlisle will do his best to make that happen. So because of that risk, I would rather have Booker and Garland, and I'd make that deal.
Yeah, it's pretty close though. Honestly, it's not, no one's getting ripped off if that's the concern. A lot of questions I've seen recently in the last couple of days about vetoes and things like that. There's no need for anybody to want to veto this kind of trade if that's the concern. Pretty fair on both sides. Next question: Killian Hayes, must roster or just a stream option? 10-team 9-cat. Personally, I think that he is a must roster currently in 10-team leagues, and even you could argue 8-team leagues. Like, he is just a must roster everywhere at the moment. Long term, until Cade comes back, which might be never, he's still somebody that I'd be starting. So I would say he is a must roster player right now.
Yes, with Cade out, yeah, must roster 10-team for sure.
10-team head to head with Bane coming back. Drop who? Monk, Ivy, Bruce Brown, or Royce O'Neal? I think probably Monk. I'm not sure how Ivy's actually done these last couple of games, but I think I'd lean towards Monk most likely. What about you?
Yeah,
maybe Ivy.
It's Monk or Ivy. I think I'd go Monk just because of the potential of Ivy, especially if we're talking points leagues. Then for sure Monk. Maybe even if we're talking points leagues, maybe you could even look towards a Royce O'Neal because he's not as valuable in points leagues. In category leagues, I would lean Monk just because he's the 6th man for Sacramento and he gets hot and cold. Whereas Ivy has the potential in the second half of the season. After the All-Star break, we could see maybe a big growth from him. So it's between Ivy and Monk in a category league for me.
Yeah, same as well. I think I'd probably lean towards dropping Monk, like you said, go for the upside play. How would you rank the 3 guards on the Magic? For me, I think it's probably Cole, Fultz, Suggs. I think that's probably how I'd lean. Maybe you want to take Fultz first, but I think we've seen Anthony actually do it a little more consistently in the pros. So I would probably go Cole, Fultz, and Suggs.
I'll go with the Fultz side first in category formats, especially as an assist specialist. If assists are really important to you, I really like Fultz. I also think he doesn't hurt as much with the percentages. If we're in a points league, it's Cole Anthony all the way, all day. But in a category league, I'll go Fultz, and Suggs would be my third guy in both of those formats.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I really like Suggs, but Well, maybe I don't mind so much because he was supposed to go fourth in the draft last year. Everybody thought he was going to go fourth. The Raptors took Scotty Barnes at fourth, and then Suggs fell to fifth. I guess I'm pretty happy there. Although Barnes hasn't looked so great either. But let's keep going with the questions here. We got a few more questions from you guys. What are your thoughts on Time Lord's impact on Horford, if any? What is Horford's outlook rest of the season with Time Lord back, and should we look to sell? Steve, I'll leave this one up to you first.
So we have gotten a lot of positive updates about Robert Williams over the last week. We saw a video of him on the court scrimmaging, going what seemed like 75% full speed, jumping. He was blocking a shot in the video I saw. So he could be back within the next month. It's definitely possible. I was saying a while ago that I was really nervous about him coming back, and it's starting to look a little bit more promising. I do think that his return will negatively impact Horford. To what extent? I mean, you're still going to have him on a minutes restriction whenever he does return. So I don't think it will be a dramatic impact where Horford won't be relevant in 12-team category leagues, standard leagues. I think he will still have value, but let's say it impacts Horford's value by about a round, by let's say 10 to 15 spots. I think that's fair to assume. So if you're going to sell, now might be a good time to sell because, the Time Lord's return is still murky right now. But sell knowing that he's still going to maintain value even with the Time Lord's return. And there is no guarantee that Robert Williams is back anytime soon. We haven't heard anything from Boston. They're going to be, in my opinion, extremely cautious with him because they played him in the postseason on the injured knee, and then he had to have offseason surgery. They're doing really well this regular season without him. I see this as a Chris Middleton situation where fantasy managers might be frustrated holding on to the Time Lord.
Yeah, the latest thing I saw was a day or two ago. They were said that he was close to returning, but I'm not sure what exactly that means. I think a week ago or so they were saying by Christmas, so maybe in the next couple of weeks he'll be back, I think, roughly. But like you said, absolutely no need for them to play any games. They might as well hold him out through Christmas and just let him come back in the new year, but we'll see what happens. Bruce Brown can play 30 minutes a game when Porter Jr. comes back, seems steady over KCP. I think he could be close to 30. I think probably right around 30, honestly. Like he's playing upwards of 30 most nights now. I think he was 37 the other night. I think probably about 30 is what I would expect.
Yeah, I'd say like 26 to 30 would be a reasonable expectation for me. With everybody healthy, could be a couple minutes under 30 minutes, but that doesn't mean that he won't be able to be valuable in category formats and that kind of opportunity as the key bench guy. I mean, one thing's become clear is Nuggets, Mike Malone, their head coach, Michael Malone, he prefers Bruce Brown over Bones Highland. That's what we know right now. Maybe that'll change. But while that stays true, Bruce Brown is the better fantasy asset in redraft leagues. And I think Porter Jr.'s return will negatively impact him, but not enough to throw him off of category league radars.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question we got a lot of questions from you guys still to get through here. Paulo Banchero has been a dud fantasy-wise since his return from his ankle injury. No rebounds and shooting. What are our thoughts? I don't think he's somebody you can be dropping. You kind of just have to hold on. I don't think it's going to be the greatest outlook rest of the season if everybody's healthy over there, like what he's done recently. 18-3 and 3, yeah, over the last couple of weeks. Bad percentages. It's not great, but you'd have not really much choice but to hold on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a chance after a few good games in a row where you could try and sell him on his name value to somebody in your league who wants the new shiny toy. Maybe he has a week where he plays really well and you could try to sell him. I see him more as a points league guy than a category league guy right now. That doesn't mean that I don't think he has value in 9-cat leagues, but I don't think he's, the top 75 player that he was at one point early on in the year.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you there. Jaden McDaniels, without foul trouble, a secure hold on Minnesota for the next month at least. Yeah, if he's not getting in foul trouble. But that's, that is an if. But he's somebody who should be rostered in a lot more leagues than he is. 64% on Yahoo. He's been a top 100 player for most of the year. So, yeah, I think he is an absolutely must roster, secure hold, whatever you want to phrase it. What do you think, Steve?
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. We have some news here. Some news from the chat. Kawhi, PG, and Luke Kennard are all back tonight. You still suggest leave him in IR for head-to-head formats. Now, this is a weekly league, I believe, from what you were mentioning before. I don't feel great about starting Kawhi still. I really don't. You'd probably want to, but there's a back-to-back in there Wednesday, Thursday. He's like almost guaranteed not to play one of those. It's a tricky one. I lean probably not, honestly. But what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, if you are at all risk averse, I totally agree with Joe there. I would, in a weekly lineup setting, I'd be really nervous to start Kawhi based on what we've seen. I mean, I think it was a few weeks ago when we were on a show and he was like healthy to start the week, and the Clippers had a 4-game week with no back-to-backs, and I mentioned something like, okay, if Kawhi Leonard doesn't play in these 4 games this week, I'm going to be really nervous. And he ended up sitting out, I think, 3 of the 4 games or something like that. I mean, Luke Kennard, we're not talking about. We're just talking about Kawhi and PG, or maybe he's only talking about Kawhi. If I was talking PG, I'd put him in my weekly lineup.
Yeah.
But Kawhi is the one I'm a lot more nervous about Kawhi, and I think I'd leave him on my. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think I'd leave him on my bench. I guess it depends on who I'm starting over him, but let's say like a Kevin Love, who Jared Allen might be back. I think I'd still be more tempted to play Kevin Love over Kawhi because I'm expecting him to play in all of the games.
Yeah, it's he could play 10 minutes, he could play 5 minutes and then tweak something and then he's done for the week. Like that's like I'm just gonna say a non-zero chance. It's probably like a coin flip if that's gonna happen, knowing the way that it's gone for Kawhi. So yeah, you won't sleep well at night knowing he's in your lineup, I don't think. But yeah, let's keep going here. Jeremy Grant for Nick Vucevic, 13 team, 11 categories with 3-point percentage and offensive rebounds. Probably go for Vucevic there. They're pretty close, I think, in terms of their overall value this season. But I think I would go with Vucevic there.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I think he shoots the ball pretty well from deep,
Yeah.
as well. So I'd go Vucevic in that format.
Bogdanovich got dropped earlier and he's on waivers. There's a ramp up period, but is he worth a pickup or will he not be 12 team relevant? I have my doubts that he'll be 12 team relevant. Would you be wanting to pick him up, Steve?
Not yet. I don't think that there are other people in your league. I think AJ Griffin, being on the Hawks roster this year, he wasn't there last year. I think that negatively impacts Bogdanovich. I do see a path for him to be in the standard league mix, but I'm not rushing to pick it up because I think it's a much narrower path than he had last season.
Yeah, I don't see it personally. Like if he was still going to be injured for a little while or something, he still had the IL designation or something, I'd maybe still like keep stashing him, but you have to burn a spot on your active roster right now, and I don't think it's going to be worth it. Drop Fultz or Poku to make room for Kawhi. Oh man, Poku, I guess, but I don't feel great about it. I really don't. Like Poku's had a bad week, but he's pretty hot and cold. I guess you could stream him in, but somebody might pick him up. And rest of season, like I would not be surprised at all if he did have more value than Kawhi. So
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Am I wrong though? Like I'm so unsure about Kawhi, man. I just have no faith that we're getting. Like we're a third of the way through the year. He's played how many games? 4, 5? Like maybe.
I think 4 more games than Jonathan Isaac. If we're comparing,
he does not exist. I'm telling you, he does not exist.
So the Clippers, they got one back-to-back this week. They are on a 4-game week. So it's possible that we're looking at 3 games from Kawhi. I'll say this. I would pick him up. I would not let him sit on a waiver wire. I would not invest 100% of my fab in Kawhi Leonard. I just wouldn't feel that trust. I'd probably go, depending on how bullish I was, I'd probably go like 25 to 40% of fab on Kawhi in the hopes that he's finally going to start playing in some games. Cause I mean, there is upside in Kawhi Leonard if he's on the court and his old self, or even, 70% of his old self. I agree with you. I would drop Poku to pick Kawhi up in that scenario. I don't think it's ridiculous to be hesitant about picking up Kawhi Leonard, and that is what makes me laugh right now. It's just
Yeah.
that's the situation we're in.
Like there's a certain point where if you get to, 14 team leagues, he should be rostered everywhere. 12 teamers, I still think he should, but it's close. But if you're talking a 10 team league, make the argument that he's not worth it at this point, which is just insanity. Again, I've mentioned this before. IL plus is the way to go because game time decisions, you stick him in there. You don't have to worry about dropping him or burning an active roster spot. So that's what I play in a lot of those leagues. And he doesn't burn you quite as much. Guys like him, whoever else is constantly injured, even just like Anthony Davis's game time decision one day, even if he's not playing, throw him on there, pick up somebody else. It's a bit of a cheat, honestly. But let's get through these last couple of questions you guys got. With Jaw out today, is Tyus a great stream? Nemhard, AJ Griffin, next two best streamers today. Yeah, I think Nemhard might be my preference there, honestly. Between him or Tyus Jones, but they're both, I think, probably like the top of the pile today. What do you think, though, Steve?
Yeah, I love the Nemhard stream. I picked him up. I think it was for their last game yesterday, and I love the production. I mean, he's delivering with assists. He's doing it efficiently. He's my favorite of the plays. Tyus Jones is a close second. They're both significantly ahead of AJ Griffin for me personally, even though I do think AJ Griffin is a really fine stream today. I just think that there is more opportunity for Nemhard and Tyus Jones.
Yeah, Nemhard is your follow up there. Like Nemhard is the guy I would go for, but I wouldn't have a problem with Tyus Jones either. Drop Horford to pick up Şengün on the waiver wire. Yes, I think I would, but this is the 10-team league, I think. Yeah, I guess you would, but I think they should both still be rostered, even in a 10-team league. Is there nobody worse? Like, I mean, you got a stacked team if Horford's your worst player. I'm interested to know possibly if there's anybody else, perhaps, but I think I would rather have Şengün rest of season.
Agreed.
Yeah, maybe just leave Kawhi on IL for now. I wouldn't hate it. Just leave him on there for a day or two. See if he actually, if he plays 25 minutes tonight and he looks good, then sure, activate him. If he plays 7 minutes and, has to go back on the injured list or whatever, then you didn't burn any, ads or drops.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. For points league, if Harden plays, is Bagley or Jabari a drop? Those are my bottom two players. Probably Bagley. I'd much rather have Jabari rest of season, I think. But Bagley's been really good, but rest of season play would be Jabari for me.
Yeah, and you're in a really good position there if those are your drops in a points league.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather have Jabari for the upside rest of the season than Bagley.
And it's a 10-team league, he's saying. Yeah, I'm taking Jabari there. Given the recent knee issue, should we look to trade Jimmy Butler for another top 20, top 30 player? If you can trade him for a top 20 player, no problem, yeah. Top 30,
Yeah.
maybe aim a little bit higher than 30 because I think he's been like just outside of the first round this year. I think last time I checked, he was like 14, 15. Maybe that's changed a little bit. Maybe he has fallen. Actually, according to Basketball Monster, he's 10 right now. So yeah, I would try and aim a little bit higher, perhaps, if you can.
But you are dealing with the missed games because expect Butler to
Yeah.
miss more games as the season goes along. That just seems to be the trend. So if you could stomach the missed games, I'd hold. If the missed games really hurt you this last time around, I think it's reasonable to go, start at top 20 and have top 30 be your absolute floor.
Yeah. Well, that was a flurry of activity in the chat from you guys. Really appreciate all of that. If you guys can hit the like and subscribe button before you go, we'd really appreciate that as well. Help other people see the show. Steve, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
I'll just say that Croatia has advanced to the next round of the World Cup, and I am very excited about that. So they're going to play Brazil on Friday, and I'm definitely going to be watching that World Cup game. Luckily, it happens in the morning, so it doesn't interfere with the NBA. Really hoping that these calls help you guys out today. Hoping for those of you guys that have Kawhi on your rosters that he plays 3 games this week. Fingers crossed.
That would be the goal. And the World Cup is a bit of a touchy subject for me as well. Being of Italian background, they didn't make the tournament, and being Canadian, and they got their asses kicked, losing all 3 games. They're one of only 2 teams, I think, in history, I forget the other one, who have been to 2 World Cups and did not get a single point in either one. Pretty sad stuff. But yeah, you guys should follow us. It's been blocked here the whole time, but go check us out on Twitter. Steve is at Steven Vidovich with the PH. I am at Joe Orrico 99. Check out all of the great stuff we have over at SportsEthos.com, and check us out over on Twitter as well. All that stuff that goes out at SportsEthos.com, it gets shared out on our pages: Ethos Fantasy BK, BB, FB, and HK. Football, hockey, baseball, and basketball. I was about to say soccer there because I got soccer on the brain, but we got all 4 major sports coverages over there at sportsethos.com. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. And until next Monday, we will see you guys on Twitter. Cheers, everybody. Take care.